Now, once Alcibiades is in Sparta, you might think that everything is finished with him and that he's going to live happily ever after in Sparta. No, Alcibiades has an incredible capacity to get himself in trouble. What he does in Sparta is essentially get bored and he decides to seduce the Queen of Sparta. Now, Sparta doesn't properly have kings. These kings don't have real political power. What they do have, though, is that they're the head of the army. It would be as if the American chief of staff were a hereditary position. But it's called a king, and essentially he has a queen. And the queen has an affair with Alcibiades and becomes pregnant. When the king returns to Sparta after building the fort at Decelea to bring Athens to its knees, he counts the months and realizes he cannot be the father of of the child that his queen is now carrying. And after the child is born, the queen apparently made no secret of the fact that it belonged to Alcibiades. She would say such things as he looks so cute, just like his father Alcibiades. The king was not amused, and Alcibiades understood that he had every chance of being killed by the Spartan king. So he decides to leave Sparta. But where to go? He can no longer return to Athens. He also can't stay in Sparta. In fact, he goes to an Athenian colony, the colony of Samos. And incredibly, it's an island off the coast of what is today Turkey. Incredibly, from the island of Samos, Alcibiades builds up a small fleet. And with that small fleet, he begins to challenge the fleet of the Spartans and the Corinthians. More than that, he begins to win. And when he begins to win these naval battles against Sparta and Corinth from a colony of Athens, Athenians begin leaving Athens and coming to side with Alcibiades. In other words, essentially, the Athenian war against Sparta begins to be led from Samos by Alcibiades. It's an incredible turn of events, and the fact that he was succeeding at this is even more extraordinary. Eventually, the popularity of Alcibiades in Athens, he's now being seen as a savior of Athens, grows so great that the Athenians can't resist anymore, calls for his return, and he is welcomed back to Athens. But once again, he does not live happily ever after in Athens. The Athenians are still terrified that Alcibiades has every intention of establishing a dictatorship, and they may very well be right. Eventually, he does lose a battle. He wasn't present at the time of the battle. He basically had to forage for supplies and money. Remember, Athens has suffered a plague at this point and had also suffered the disastrous defeat in Syracuse. Their resources are exhausted. So Alcibiades not only had to lead the armies, he had to also finance the armies and supply the armies. And this was extremely, extremely difficult. And he also had to even recruit soldiers from the various colonies of Athens and any other city-state that would potentially give him, provide him with soldiers. At any rate, after the defeat, the Athenians turn on Alcibiades a second time, and once again he decides to go into exile. He can't go to Sparta. The thing at Samos is now finished. He goes over to Persia. And he betrays all of Greece to Persia. Basically, he explains to Persia how to defeat the Athenians and how to defeat the Spartans at the same time by playing one side off against the other. And the true victor of the Peloponnesian War, for a short time at least, is Persia, as the Greeks are exhausted. All the participants in this war are completely wiped out. Alcibiades is killed right around the end of the war. We don't really know who did it. Essentially, it may have been as simple as he had an affair with a woman in a neighboring village, and her family took vengeance on this and killed him, as near as we can tell. But he doesn't stay in Persia for very long before he loses his life. An incredible career. Now, he was very close to Socrates. Socrates admired the genius of Alcibiades. Alcibiades also understood and admired Socrates. There was even a rumor that they may have been lovers, just like Socrates was with Charmides. Now, whether this is true or not is not very clear. Plato in the Symposium denies that they were lovers, but other Athenians think, in fact, they were. Again, we can leave that issue aside. That's not important for us. But what is important is that they were close. In fact, in one of the earlier battles fought by Alcibiades when he was still a child, he got himself into some difficulty, and Socrates, as a veteran soldier, saved his life. Later, following a battle at Delium, a catastrophic defeat that Athens suffered at the hands of Thebes. Socrates was in danger, and he was saved by Alcibiades, who was at this point a cavalry officer. So they saved each other's life once each in a military context, and that can also bring men closer together. All right, so like as I've said, in some ways this is the trial of the ghost of Socrates. In fact, I think I'm going to need 4 parts here. So let's make a little pause, and I will pick it up again with a short description of warfare in the Greek world and the Oracle of Delphi.